2017. Hi, welcome to the Living in Partnership with Spirit show. I'm Ingrid Turner, your host, and I am so happy to be here with you today. So today is our January 2017 special show. So the format is going to be a little different than what we've been doing. Today we're covering the topic of addiction and the role of spirit and spirituality in addiction and the recovery process. I'm joined today by three incredible souls who today spread their experience, their strength, their joy through various spiritual and counseling modalities. Each of these people who we're going to talk to today have walked through the fire of addiction and have come out the other side of that intense journey, a completely transformed being, and now fully aligned with their destiny. Their addiction played an important part in the discovery of their core essence, and it continues to lend itself to their practice today. I am also a recovering alcoholic. So for years, I was a daily drinker. I would sink deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into that black hole of addiction. I was miserable, I was blocked, I was selfish, and I was spiritually flailing. And it wasn't until I hit that rock bottom with a mortifying thunk that I was able to even see that there was a problem in my life. But once I did, that's when I finally started digging into my own essence. And it was really that day, that morning when I woke up and went, oh my God, I have a problem. That's when I started to line up with my own destiny and my own fulfillment of spirit. So we're going to jump right into our panel. We will not be taking calls during this show as we're on a much tighter schedule in order to cover everything we want to cover with everybody we want to cover it with. So I'd like to introduce to you Anthony Rodriguez, Tracy Principi, and Steve Jacobson. Anthony is an energy healing practitioner. He specializes in working with people in recovery from addiction. Tracy is an intuitive success coach. She helps people get out of their life ruts and line up with their own life purpose. And Steve is a musician. He's a recovery coach, animal advocate, and a writer. He channels spirit through his music, works with people in recovery, and is writing an exciting new book, which I will let him speak to more. So now for proper introductions from the show stars themselves. Anthony, let's start with you. Can you take 2 minutes and tell us a little more about yourself and include how we can contact you?
Okay, well, my name is Anthony Rodriguez, and thank you. Good morning, Ingrid. Thank you for having me on.
Good morning.
Us on. My name is Anthony Rodriguez. They call me Walking Crow. That's my spiritual name. I am an energy healer. I'm a shamanic drummer, medicine man. And I work with people in recovery to come out of their heads, come out of the darkness of their head and come into the soul of their body, their being. They're right here, right now. You can reach me at area code 818-442-1717, or you can reach me at my email at anthony@sacreddrummedicine.com.
Oh, thank you, Anthony. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm so thrilled to have you on today. So,
I'm
Tracy,
just tickled to death.
I love that. Tracy, welcome. Give us a little bit of an expanded bio and tell us how we can contact you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I'm so glad to be here with you all today. My name is Tracy Principi. I also go by my middle name, Tracy Lynn. I'm an intuitive success coach, helping other business entrepreneurs and those that desire entrepreneurship and freedom for themselves get through their blocks and limiting beliefs, family history and trauma, clearing those vows and contracts and ancestral karma that plagues us. A lot of that does have to do with addictions and trauma in our history. And I can be reached at my website, www.healingallbeings.com, or my email, Tracy, Tracy, @healingallbeings.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you so much for coming on today. I'm so excited to have you here, hear more about what you're doing. Steve, welcome. Give us a little bit of an expanded bio and how can people contact you?
Well, let's see. Well, I myself am a recovering addict. Just celebrated 20 years on the 25th. And I'm a musician first and foremost. I mean, I'm in 3 bands. One of my bands is actually centered around the idea of recovery, and that band is called Requiem for Oblivion, and the name kind of speaks for itself. But yeah, like Ingrid stated, I am writing a book, and the purpose of the book is that I always felt like the 12 steps could be really utilized by everyday people that aren't addicts, to help them kind of sort out problems in their lives and walk through things with grace as opposed to stumbling around aimlessly. So that's kind of the purpose of that book. And like she said, I also work with an animal rescue, huge animal advocate, and and I do work with recovering addicts and just various modalities that I use. And you can reach me if just you want to say hi or whatever. My main email is requiemforoblivion@yahoo.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so thrilled to have you here. And I love the picture you submitted, by the way. It was absolutely perfect. Did you see? I totally used it as that's the one.
I couldn't find my mugshot, so that was it.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. And I know that I've got us on a bit of a tight schedule, but there's so much I want to cover with all of us today. And we're not going to be able to cover nearly as much as I want to, of course, because we always want to do more than we can, right? Than our linear time will allow. But I just want to start with having each of you briefly talk about your journey with addiction. Now, I realize I'm giving you about 2 minutes each, so give us the highlights. But Tracy, let's start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about, what happened? Just what happened?
Wow. Okay. In a nutshell, I was basically a functioning alcoholic. I went to work every day. I didn't drink every day. I drank on weekends as kind of a release. I was a single mom. I had a stressful job and the stresses of being a parent. So the alcohol was like a release on the weekends that I thought that I deserved. And so I managed that for a long time until I got a couple of DUIs driving home from the bar on Friday night, but that didn't really, stop me for a little while. But I thought, well, lots of people get DUIs; it's not a big deal. And so, I continued to get some DUIs. My interpersonal relationships weren't all that great, but I excelled at work. That was my strong point. I didn't have any issues there, so I never thought that the other stuff, it was, I always thought it was other people and not me. And so it wasn't really until, somehow my dad died of alcoholism very young. I basically grew up without a father. That was in the back of my mind. And somewhere in there, I had this nagging feeling deep within me that I think I am running out of time with this alcohol thing. Although it took quite a few more years for that to come to a head, where I did run out of time and I was faced with the fact that I had a problem. I could no longer carry on and put on that mask anymore. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't hold up that, whatever I was doing. I basically built a glass house for myself, and it came crumbling down. And so when that happened, I had no other choice but to surrender and submit and say, I do have a problem. There is no other, I can't hide it anymore. The cat's out of the bag. And that's the first time I walked into an AA meeting and I sat down and I listened. I had no idea what was going to happen or how or anything, but I sat in that chair and I listened. And so I opened myself up to that new energy that I hadn't experienced before. I did have a few relapses, a couple of false starts, because I just wasn't getting it. I was like, wow, I do not get this. It did not come easily to me at all. It really didn't. But I stuck with it, and and that was the key. I just stuck with it and kept on trying until I finally, had that light bulb moment.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Tracy. So,
sure,
Steve, what about you? What happened with you?
Well, of course, this is all in retrospect. I learned a lot about myself, especially through like journaling and working the steps and all that kind of stuff and the other spiritual practices. But I realized, later on that around age 10, I started to develop irrational fears, just these little creeping things in my mind as I was exposed more and more to, public, and we had just moved. I was in a whole new school, and all these fears were popping up, and some sadness entered my life. I'm not really sure where that came from, but I've carried a lot of sadness throughout my life. And so by the age of 12, when I had gone off to work for my uncle's steel construction company, just a summer job type thing. And after a long day of work one day, we're riding back to the house. It's about a 2-hour drive in this one of those converted like old school vans, like a Scooby-Doo van with the carpet inside and everything. And my uncles gave me these 2 Old Milwaukee, the tall, skinny Old Milwaukee cans, and I drank them both. And I remember just rolling around on the floor of this van while they're driving and just giggling and feeling like I found Nirvana and I was home. Like I felt like I was home. And so roughly the next 15 years I spent chasing that feeling, I think.
Wow.
And trying to silence those little fears and irrational thoughts and things that started to develop. And we've talked, Ingrid, about, trying to fill that God-sized hole with all kinds of things, from drugs and alcohol to sex and gambling and food and shopping. I've been through it all. So, love addiction, everything. So, that was kind of it for me. I was kind of a garbage can user. I used everything. I really liked cocaine and booze were my favorite, but, it didn't matter. Pretty much used everything that I could get my hands on. There were a couple exceptions. Wasn't a heroin guy, and I didn't do acid, but everything else was fair game.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Thank you for sharing that, Steve. Thank you. Wow. Anthony, honey, your turn. Tell us what happened.
Well, what happened was, I was a short, dark, ugly little kid. Who didn't have very many friends, and one day somebody gave me a joint. I can't tell who because there may be those people may be listening. I don't want to break that anonymity. And I had a tall can, Pabst Blue Ribbon tall can, and I was playing big shot in front of the other kids in the neighborhood, and I was sipping on the beer and smoking the joint, and I thought I was a big shot. And over the years, that accelerated. I worked in the liquor store from 13 to 15. And, stealing beer and that sort of stuff for my friends and my brother and that sort of thing. And then as I got into high school, we were out drinking and doing that stuff on the Friday night football thing and, selling pot, having pot. And moving into my 20s and, drinking like nobody's business. Drinking was normal. We drove and drank and we didn't care what was going on. And we were always drinking something. And, I drank through the 80s, through the cocaine years, through the Knots Landing years, and through the Dallas years, all that stuff that people were getting together and drinking over in groups. And I was always the party guy. I was always the happy one, and I was always the fat happy guy. And I was always people would give me these stupid names and labels in this weird language that we spoke at the time. And I just kept on drinking. And one day. After 20 years of drinking, the Christmas lights went on behind me, heading down the 405, coming from drinking in Sylmar. I lived in Encino. and I got pulled over and went before Judge Michael Knight. And, that was the beginning and the end. Judge Michael Knight sentenced me to community service, $300 and some fine, 26 meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous and something else. And I got out of everything except for the 26 meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous because I was hip, slick, and cool, and I knew how to do stuff like that. I knew people, and I could get out of things. So for some reason, I showed up at Alcoholics Anonymous, and I thought, I could get my court card signed, but I could do it myself, but I would probably get caught. I don't know why I had that thought. I don't know why that thought came to me because I told you I was too busy being hip, slick, and cool and getting away with things. So I didn't sign that card. I went to the meetings and I got sober and I drank during the first 30 days. And then finally I got sober on January 26th with the Super Bowl Sunday. And I had been to a meeting that morning. And I was out in Sylmar partying. I was eating carne asada. I was smoking dope and I was drinking a Tecate. And at halftime, something happened. They were going to do a run to the liquor store, and I threw them a $5 and said, bring me back a 6-pack of Diet Coke, and I haven't had a drink since. I haven't had pot since. I haven't had anything to alter my my mood in the last 25 years, and I celebrated 25 years last Thursday. And I believe that spirit in, spirit out. You put spirits in your body, and your true spirit leaves. And I believe that's what happened to me for a period of 20 years. Whew.
Wow. Oh, thank you for sharing that.
And I'm feeling that spirit return right now. I'm feeling the spirit return right now. It just filled my body, it filled my core, it filled my soul. And that's what I want to do with people. I work with people in addiction to help them come out of the thinking of their head, come out of the me too or yeah but or this time, because these people who keep yeah butting and this timing are going to this time and yeah but themselves to death. I was fortunate that I didn't have to do that. I was very fortunate, and I'm blessed to be here. And, we recognize each other because Ingrid and I recognized each other when we were working together, and it was like, oh, and here we are. That was 3 or 4 years ago, and here we are now, and trudging the road of happy destiny, absolutely.
Yep, completely transformed. Thank you, Anthony. I remember going to my first AA meeting. I remember waking up that morning after the last big drink and going, uh-oh. And it took me a couple of days to get to a meeting, but I remember how serendipitous it was. I walked into a meeting that was a beginner's meeting. I had no idea. I didn't know anything about AA. I just knew I had to do something or I was going to drink. And I walked in, and the topic, which I stole for this first question, was what happened? And I remember listening to everybody's story around the room and thinking, oh, my God, they're just like me. And on the tail of that thought was, and these people are the most powerful people I've ever met. And that's what, that's when I realized, like Steve said, that God-sized hole right there. Whoa, that's when I started to get an inkling that addiction is this wide openness to spirit. People who have addictive tendencies, they have this wide openness to spirit. And if you're not filling it with God, if you're not filling it with spirit, you're filling it with something else. And like Anthony says, that's when your own spirit leaves your body. That's beautiful. Thank you all so much for sharing that story. I want to travel a little further along and talk about the recovery process. And I believe, actually, I know this to be true, that what gets people recovered from their addiction is a spiritual foundation. You can use AA or your church group or any kind of structure. The structure doesn't really matter. It's the spiritual foundation. So I wanted you each to talk a little bit about how your spirituality helped you through your addiction, helped you in your recovery to get to the other side of being in the throes of your addiction. And Steve, I'd like to start with you.
Well, I was raised Catholic, so I always kind of believed that there was a higher power out there. And in retrospect, I do believe that there was a higher power watching out for me, because I had been in so many like scary rollover car accidents, confronted by people with knives, shot at, just all kinds of crazy things. And I still came out of most of that stuff unscathed. And so I really felt, I heard a guy at a big NA convention one time say, that he kind of felt that God was always with him, even in his addiction. And I kind of, in retrospect, see that now. I didn't feel it maybe at the time. I would just kind of get out of these situations and go, oh, wow, that was lucky or whatever, But, when I got clean, it was a total divine intervention. I had a broken leg a week before my last day. I had a really bad broken leg, kind of escaped from the hospital and went right back to it. And then I got beat up by a bunch of guys that I thought were my friends. And that's when, that I finally put that shovel down and I stopped digging, and I humbled myself and I called my parents and I asked for help. And that was kind of the end of it for me, in terms of how I got, stepped over that line to the recovery side. And then, from there, of course, I kind of I jokingly call myself a recovering Catholic now, because I'm not real hip on all the dogma, and I think the Bible is taken too literally. So I don't go by a lot of that stuff. I'm not trying to offend anybody, but it just doesn't resonate with me. So, I've my sponsor, he made me figure out that, hey, you got to take all those old beliefs and stick them in a little globe and put those in the back of your mind. You know, you can access them anytime you want, 30 years from now, 5 years from now, 2 weeks from now, but for now, you got to lose all that. He said, start over and make a list of the attributes of what your higher power would be. You know, and so I had to work on that. I had to work on figuring out, you know, and kind of building a relationship with a higher power or my higher self, you know, that kind of thing. And I've studied so many spiritual traditions. I went through my Buddhist phase. I love the Native American stuff, the Great Spirit. I have a coin that has that Great Spirit prayer. So I'm kind of all over the map, but I integrate everything that I really love and that resonates with me into my own set of beliefs that have carried me for 20 years. You know, and obviously the step work was the foundation for all of that. And since then, you know, I kind of hit a spiritual brick wall at one point, and a girl at a meeting that I barely knew, you know, she was good looking, so I was going to listen to her. But, you know, I barely knew her, and she said, hey, you might want to check out this meeting on Wednesday nights, you know. And so I said, okay, you know. And it turns out it's a meditation group where they do energy healing and a 30-minute meditation, and it's based on A Course of Love book, which is, I think, a spin-off of A Course in Miracles. So it's a really cool group, and it has really helped open me up some more again, and really starting to fill that God-sized hole again, to where I'm getting much happier again. I'm in a better place. So yeah, that's what's going on with the spiritual stuff for me right now.
Oh gosh, that meeting sounds delightful, Steve. I mean, they're all delightful, but that one sounds really
delightful. Amazing. I wish it was like 4 times a week.
Oh my gosh, wow. How inspiring. I might have to talk to you later and see if I could do something like that around here. That'd be neat. Where I am.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing. Anthony, on to you. Tell us about your spirituality and taking you through your addiction to the other side, to recovery.
You know, in my addiction, I didn't have any spirituality. You know, there was, you know, I was void, null and void of anything like that. I was a happy guy. I used to say that, you know, nature is my religion. I used to go up to the mountain and sit on the mountain. I didn't even know what I was doing then. I was acting as if. But it was after, when I got sober, I started going to church right after a Christian church in Van Nuys that was really an open forum for theology and practicing and God. And I went there in tandem with my recovery, and it seemed to work for me and help me for a long time. I became part of the choir. I'm a musician as well. I became part of, you know, the band, and I did that walk. But it was really when I came into my my medicine, my energy healing practice, and what I've been doing as a medicine man and other things that really has started to shift, because I started to, once I became an energy healer, I started to listen to gurus and Hindi gurus and what they would have to say and what they had to teach. And one day I went to hear a guru talk about soulmates. I thought, all right, the secret. I want to hear the secret. So I went over to hear the secret about soulmates. And I learned one of the greatest lessons that I've ever learned in my life that really changed my life. And he said, soul does one thing. Soul lives out here. This is the soul seat. And he showed us where the soul seat was, just in the chest area. And it's outside the body. He says, soul is so small, you cannot draw it with a pen. You can't see it. It's that small. He said, but this is soul, and soul has one purpose, and soul only loves God. And when he said that, it changed my life. I mean, it literally changed my life. The way I perceived God, I no longer perceived God in a way that my parents did. I didn't have a reason to live in the culture of their religion, in the culture of their belief, because it wasn't. They were religious by duty. And I don't believe duty is the reason to do anything, you know. And along the way, actually since my first days of sobriety, I changed the serenity prayer for myself, because it was really about letting go and not so much about understanding. Because I started to pray it like this: God, grant me the serenity to expect the things I cannot change. And for me, that was, you know, I have no control. The big book tells me I am powerless but I become empowered by my powerlessness. And I'm also told that lack of power is my dilemma in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And understanding that, when I would pray the prayer, God grant me the serenity to expect the things I cannot change, I was surrendering totally. I was surrendering totally to all those things around me that held power over me for a lifetime. And that was a lifetime of 31 years at that time. At that time it was 31 years. And now, fast forward, to this part of my lifetime, at 55 and 25 years sober, it's been like 20 minutes. And spirit works in my life always. I have many teachers and many masters, aho. And I don't look at any one particular more than another. They're all encompassing. They're all about me. I'm all about them. And, it's a loose, we like they say around here, it's a loose garment. And I wear a loose garment, and I don't let any one thing lead me more than another, And it makes it easier for me to live in my body and to be in my feelings and not be in my head about what is or what could possibly be or what really isn't. But I'm going to spin the story anyways, because you know what we do. You know how we are. We spin that story, and there's no reason to be spinning a story that's not happening anymore. It hasn't happened for 30 years or 25 years, so there's nothing to spin. So I get to let go and let God let go and let good, and live in my spirit in a way that I've never experienced before. And every day is different. And I'm so totally blessed by it.
Thank you, Anthony. I just love the way you ended that. Every day is different. We celebrate the change. We celebrate the seasons. That's beautiful. Thank you. Tracy, talk to us about spirituality and through your addiction and into your recovery process.
Wow. So I was operating on fear for most of my life. It was a survival, I was always in survival mode, and from a young age, I had to rely on myself because I didn't really have parents. And so I learned from a young age that I couldn't really trust adults or anybody around. I had to rely on myself. And so in that process, it became a survival, I was always in survival mode, which was just operating on fear and controlling, everything, because I just didn't want, I was so fearful that something was going to fall apart or, not work, so it was just a tremendous amount of stress and pressure that I put on myself. And so, when I got into the program, I had a really tough time. The first year, people were like happy, and I was like, I am freaking miserable. Like, I can't barely, I was miserable for the first year, absolutely miserable. And I didn't understand, what these people were talking about. I was trying really hard. And I just wasn't getting, I wasn't getting this, powerlessness and letting go and all that. And so I was just white knuckling it, sitting on my hands for a year, trying to struggle through. And I did. I relapsed a couple of times. I just couldn't take it anymore. I just was like, oh, this isn't changing. It's not working. And, so I'd pick up that drink again for that relief. I wanted that relief so bad. And I wasn't getting it. I was not getting that relief no matter what I did. But I kept going back. I was like, okay, keep going back. There's got to, whatever that missing link is, whatever I'm not getting. Well, and then finally I heard it, and something happened. I don't even know how it happened or when it happened. It just, that light bulb moment when everything clicked, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it, the powerlessness, the surrender, the letting go of what that really means, what that feels like, and what that looks like in my life, and it's okay to do that. And then, and now, yes, I can totally reflect back on my life and say, yeah, there was some universal power that was watching over me, absolutely, throughout my life and the situations that I was in, including a nurse. I think I was like 38, and I had gone to the doctor because my mom was like, you should get your liver checked. Your dad died of this disease. He died really young. I was like, okay, Mom. And I went and had my liver checked. And the nurse, it was actually an NP, and she said, not only is alcoholism hereditary, but the liver disease is hereditary as well.
and you're a woman, so that makes it even worse because, you know, you don't metabolize alcoholism. So she was like 2 glasses of wine is too much. And at that point, I was well over 2 glasses of wine. And so, but that, and I remember this because that, although she checked my liver was fine. So I was like, woohoo, I can keep drinking. And so I didn't stop drinking, but it planted a seed. I drank for a couple more years, but it planted a seed. And I knew that, you know, that nurse had the awareness to tell me that, and that awareness about it, you know what I mean? So I knew that that was like a divine intervention of sorts. You know, in hindsight, it was absolutely a divine intervention of sorts. And so, so now when I look back on that, I absolutely see, and I was always looking for something outside of myself. I wanted to be spiritual, and I had glimpses of that spirituality, but the alcohol just cut that connection off. And, you know, so now when I open myself up to the program, it's like, oh, gratitude and surrendering and letting go. I mean, all those concepts are exactly what I read in books by Wayne Dyer, and, you know, all the spiritual masters teach that. And I thought, well, it just goes hand in hand. There's no religion about it. It doesn't, you know, I mean, people shouldn't stay away because it's religious. It's not. It's to me, I've incorporated the two, and they blend together perfectly and beautifully in my life. You know, and that's how I live my life every day, with those principles that I learned in the program, along with my own spiritual teachings, which are very, very similar in my opinion, that allow me to cultivate and do what I do on a daily basis and have no desire to pick up a drink. I can't even imagine, you know, that first year where I thought, how am I ever going to do this? You know?
Right.
And so to have that peace and freedom, because it's absolute peace and freedom within me, I mean, and a drink would take that away in an instant, and it would be so hard to get it back.
Oh, exactly. So true, Tracy.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about drinking too. I'm like, why would I do that? Why would I give up everything that I have today just to have a drink? It's not nearly as good as direct connection with spirit. That's a way better high. You know, I remember one of the things that really was pivotal in my spirituality, you know, the 12-step program, all the 12-step programs are based on Zen principles. I don't know if that's actually the official fact. It's like it's based on Zen principles. So there are going to be similarities and crossing over of all the, you know, many of the different spiritual teachings out there. And one of the things that I remember so clearly was people talking about that pink cloud. So in AA, that pink cloud was, oh, you're newly sober, so you're really happy. And I remember being told over and over and over again by, you know, several of the old timers, like, well, you're on the pink cloud, that won't last, so life will suck again pretty soon. Just almost like, why? I mean, that was simply a belief I didn't hold for whatever reason. I was like, why can't my happiness last forever? And it was kind of chasing that pink cloud and bringing in, you know, leveraging the structure of that 12-step program and my own spirituality, you know, what I was channeling as well as what I was getting from, you know, other spiritual teachers and putting that together. And even though I will lose that pink cloud, you know, I don't stay there all the time. I know it's always accessible to me. It's simply a choice. It's a choice, you know, one choice away of, you know, being in this state of bliss, really, even when you're going through difficult times. So I've always felt like that was one of the most profound experiences I had in the rooms at Alcoholics Anonymous, was learning about that pink cloud and going, well, why can't I stay in that pink cloud forever? I mean, really, why? Right? So thank you so much, Tracy, Anthony, and Steve, for sharing that. I love to hear how you all have your own individual, unique way of putting your spirituality together and forming your foundation, but at the same time, the tethers overlap over and over again as I hear you talking. The next question I want to travel, we're on a journey here. So the next area I want to cover is talking more about your life today And, most of us, people who meet us today and didn't know us back then, they wouldn't necessarily have any idea that we have that history with addiction, that we went so far down, that we really struggled with those demons and lost our own spirit. But for me, my addiction and my process of addiction and recovery lends itself so profoundly to the spiritual work I do today, even though I'm not working directly in recovery. But this will be, easier for some to answer than others, and some of you still are working, very much directly with recovery. But I want to hear about specifically, how does your history with addiction and your recovery process, how does that lend itself to your spiritual work today? And Anthony, I'd like to start with you.
Wow. If you take a look at me now, I'm 160 pounds. And if you look at me when I first got sober or during my sobriety, I was always about 225, 240 pounds. I was always pretty heavy. And that was a sign of everything that I was carrying for a lifetime. It was symbolic. I was blocked in my fifth chakra. I was blocked in my second chakra of connection to others. I was blocked in my third chakra, no self-esteem, low self-esteem. I was blocked in my heart, my fourth chakra, no, I wasn't loved. I was always in my third chakra thinking. I know, yeah, but. And, now it's, I was able to release and let go. And when I say let go, let good, let go, let God, I mean it, because the 12 steps only took me so far, and they will only take me so far. I'm talking about me. I don't know about anybody else. But I needed more, and I needed to delve deeper, and I needed to go to Sweat Lodge, and I needed to go hear Guru, and I needed to go hear Buddhist. I needed to go drum. I needed to go speak. I needed to do all the things that I did to allow myself to release the blame and the anger and the hurt and the shame and the fear and the drama and the trauma that was not mine to carry. Absolutely not mine to carry. I have a lineage, a spiritual lineage that does for me what I can't do for myself. I didn't know that before 5 years ago, and I've been sober for 25 years. And what I've learned is, I love Alcoholics Anonymous, but it's, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And if you're still butting yourself in your life and lying to yourself and spinning the story on a daily basis, you're not skinning the cat. I really believe that. So I need to keep skinning that cat, however it looks like. And today it was, a walk in nature before, I did anything today. A walk in nature. I went and fed myself something. I spent some time drumming or rattling, and I was in preparation to do this with you today. Because I need to prepare. I need to give myself something to do. Not that I need to. I want to give myself something that fortifies me as a man, as Anthony, as she-man, shaman, as a divine feminine, as a divine masculine, who I am right here, right now. And it's so important to me. It's so important to me. And, drinking isn't an option. I know everybody I know drinks. Everybody I know smokes pot. But I also know their issues. So I'm just looking at them. I have to mind my own business. And that's one of the things, too. I mind my own business unless I'm asked. I don't give you my opinion unless I'm asked. So, and then even then I'll consider not giving you my opinion because it's, I want to be okay with who I am. And I don't want to seemingly offend anybody. But I want to be able to be in a good place, be balanced, walk in the way of beauty, like my elders tell me, walk in the way of beauty, so yeah, that's it and that's all.
Thank you, Anthony. That's awesome. Thank you, Anthony. Tracy, talk to us about how your history with addiction lends itself to your spiritual work today.
Wow. Well, yeah, it's been a long road. I really had a lot of healing work in the beginning, just looking at my family history and the relationships there, because I spent most of my life drinking at my parents, drinking at people that hurt me or, whatever. So, and so I had to really dig deep and get, look at that and get through that. But what I found in that process of, that a lot of that forgiveness work and letting go of the anger. I was very angry around that for a long time. And so, just releasing the anger out of my body doing that forgiveness work, the shame, the guilt, because then I realized, wow, I raised a child. I was an alcoholic. Here I thought I was a good mom, and I was a freaking alcoholic raising a kid, and the guilt over that just consumed me in the beginning. And so really working on all that, that energy and clearing and those limiting beliefs and the self-sabotage that I had, I really had to work on all of that. So through a lot of spiritual practices, that again came to me through, very synchronistic ways once you open yourself up to that. Just the right people appeared at the right time, the right classes or whatever I needed really appeared for me, and I just began that beautiful internal journey of healing, because like I said, for me it was all about the outside. So to really turn inside and focus on that, and then make it a discipline, make it a daily practice, whatever that looks like for you, is a big part of my life each and every day. And what I teach, because no matter if you're an alcoholic or you're not an alcoholic, I see people struggling with the same types of issues, so we could all benefit from a 12-step program or a spiritual practice. And, it's about that internal guidance system that we have and using it. And it takes a little work and it takes a little discipline, but as we know, the payoff is well worth it. And so, it's beautiful once we get to that point. It's that internal work and that continual internal work on a daily basis, at least for me, that I have to cultivate within myself. And learning, I enjoy learning and reading all the time, and hearing people's stories. And finding, turning it into a gift, right? So I always thought, like, why me? Why did I get this messed up situation, the messed up family? Like, I used to think, like, why me? And now it's like, why not me? Why not? I have, I turn it around into a gift. And it took me, most of my 49 years to realize it's a gift. It's not a curse. It's a gift. And I am very, extremely lucky to be sober today and have this platform and have this opportunity to help others, because my dad didn't get that chance. And a lot of people we know didn't get that opportunity. And so we absolutely are the lucky ones. And so we can't, yes, I have a message to share. And I have, regardless of what, a lot of people have addictions of some sort or another, like we're saying, food is a big one, but it's an emotional response to something that you're lacking within internally. And so I think we can all benefit from some type of spiritual program.
I agree. Thank you, Tracy.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Steve, can you talk a little bit about how your history of addiction and recovery lends itself to your spiritual work today?
Yeah, Tracy gave me a great segue to talk about my book.
She sure did.
12-step for the everyday person,
I love that.
But, I do magical practices of intention every time I sit down to write, anytime I try to write lyrics, anytime I sit down in my recording studio, anytime I start writing new music, because I want that even though I play death metal, an extremely aggressive, extreme style of metal, I want that infused with like life-giving support and I want it to make people that like that kind of music. I want them to feel good, when they feel and energized and dynamic when they listen to that. So that's kind of I like to do that, and that's more of a recent thing that I've started doing with all of my practices. I work with animals. I like to walk through the animal shelter that I'm a part of. I like to just walk through there and spend a little time with each animal as time allows, obviously. But you know, they're just lonely, and they're in this place. They're waiting for a forever home, and you know, so I don't only work with people. I work with, you know, bringing joy to other beings as well. You know, and I feel that's so important. There's something inside of me that really, you know, longs to work with animals as well. And you know, I don't think there's enough people out there that do that. And you know, and then obviously, you know, me sticking around for 20 years and doing all of the spiritual work that I've done, and you know, I mean, sometimes it felt like work, but sometimes it wasn't work. Sometimes it was just exploration. You know, sometimes it was adventures and you know, things like that. I don't like to call it work necessarily, because it's such a great benefit, and you never know where you're going to end up when you start doing these things, you know, and but because of all of that stuff that I've done over the years, you know, I'm able to impart some guidance, you know, and like Anthony said, you know, I'm not going to just, you know, go up to people and start telling them what I think they should be doing, or, you know, people have to ask me, you know, because up here in the area, I mean, people are dropping dead every day from overdoses. I mean, it's just gotten to be this epidemic that is just wild right now. And it just tells me that there's a lot of people out there that are really suffering. They can't get a handle on the control that these substances have over them, you know, and it's sad, you know, and you know, there's potential, you know, there's a lot of potential that's dying with these people, and you know, perhaps some great minds that are being lost and things like that, you know. So to me, it's just, you know, I have to keep reaching out, you know, even in my day job, you know, I try to reach out, you know, I'm an agent for a landlord, and I had to tell someone recently, a disabled woman at that you know, she may be getting evicted if she can't pay a certain amount of money by a certain time, and she just broke down in tears, you know, and I just gave her a hug, you know, because I don't know what else to do. I can't give her a free place to live, but I can give her a hug. Do you know what I mean? I can give her support. And so I try to carry that, and that's kind of the part of that, too, is the result of this new group that I told you about. You know, it's like I try to carry, you know, not just to other recovering addicts or suffering addicts, but I try to carry some hope to everybody, you know. You know, not just people in the recovery community, and not just, you know, people, but animals too, and you know, and people that might get evicted, and you know, and things like that. So, you know, so I'm a big believer in, you know, infusing your efforts and your projects with intention, and you know, having some positive intention behind things, and so that's been kind of the focus, like I said, especially with the music stuff. You know, I also have some solo music stuff. I'm trying to get licensed, you know, TV, movies, commercials, video games, things like that. So, like, I have all these projects going on, and there's never enough time in the day, you know, and you know, so, but you got to keep finding time for, you know, prayer and meditation and things like that, you know, step 11 stuff. So, yeah, so it's a challenge, you know, it's a challenge for us, I think, for us people that do try to help so many people, and, you know, that we have to take care of ourselves, too, because I know for one, I forget to take care of myself sometimes because I'm so busy, you know, working on projects and trying to help people, trying to help animals, you know, and I forget Eve, you know. Eve gets lost in the shuffle a little bit, you know. So.
Yeah. That's a really, really good point, Steve, to remember to take care of yourself, and you have to do it first, because if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not able to take care of anybody else. And I know that sounds so cliche, but it is just the God's honest truth. And I feel like one cannot hammer that home enough. Self-care is paramount. Thank you, Steve. Thank you for sharing that. So we are just about ready to wrap up our panel already. I feel like that went so fast, and we just scratched the surface. I could sit here and talk to all of you all day long, but I think we all have
maybe a part two.
Cracking on. Maybe a part two, yeah, because I feel like there's so much more to dive into. But before we sign off, can you, each of you, take a minute, think of maybe between 1 and 3 things, pieces of advice that you would give somebody who's listening right now who is struggling with addiction, or who has a loved one who is struggling with addiction. What piece of advice, or a couple pieces of advice, would you give that person? And Tracy, I'd like to put you in the hot seat first.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, if you're struggling with addiction, to get help, it just, you can't do it on your own. I hear too many people say, oh, well, I say, have you gone to AA? And they say no. They maybe they heard something about it or whatever. And I just can't stress enough. It just really can't be done on your own. And I know a lot of people struggling that are trying to do it on their own. And I don't know, the success rate is dismal. So get to a meeting. They're everywhere. Just go, just walk in there despite the fear. And, the fear is what's holding people back. But the fear of dying or just going absolutely crazy or maybe going to jail is a lot, gets to a point where it's greater than the fear of, walking into the unknown of, what's going to happen in this meeting or what's going to happen beyond that. And then, just do it. And you got to be ready, though. If somebody's struggling with addiction, you can't, you can plant the seeds, but you can't force them. They got to be ready to do it on their own, right? So that's a real struggle, to not be an enabler and to support someone, but not enable them, right? Because they've got to come to that conclusion on their own. And if they're ready, they're
Correct.
ready. If they're not, they're not.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve, what piece of advice do you have for any listeners today who are struggling with addiction or have loved ones who are struggling and wanting to get out of it?
Well, you have to love yourself enough to want to walk through that fear, and you have to ask for help. I mean, the macho, masculine bullshit, I don't need no help, is just garbage. The street and prison yard mentality is such bullshit. Excuse my French, but the whole thug life, street life, prison yard stuff, you got to drop all that, and you got to get help, and or you're going to die. I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. You may end up in jail, you may end up in a rubber room, but chances are eventually you're just going to die. And and what really kept me around, once I had a shimmer of just a tiny break from that cycle that kept me trapped, was all the dreams that I had for, being a musician and following all these different dreams I had, when I was younger. Those things really fuel my fire, and that's something whenever I get asked to speak, I just spoke at a prison recently, and whenever I'm asked to speak, I always say, you have to find out what your dreams and goals are. Like, you have to figure out what your biggest dream is, and you have to chase that, because that is fuel for you to keep going on this recovery path. And you'll make it someday if you keep it going. You just can't pick up one day at a time.
Right. I mean, think about how the fuel you had for your addiction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Start applying that to your dream. Perfect. Love it, Steve. Yeah. Anthony, how about you? Yeah. What advice do you have today?
Me for live a life of me first always, because you have to take care of yourself, and that's, people would say that's selfish, but it's not selfish. It's something that no one has taught us to do. I don't need to spend you don't need to spend your time thinking about what other people are doing, because what is it? The water seeks its own level, and if you're looking for trouble, you're going to find it. So I practice me first always, and put the mask on yourself. You can't give away what you haven't got. And Steve said it, and everybody today has said it. Hey, ask for help. Reach out and ask for help. If you're asking for help, don't toss a yeah but in there. Don't toss it this time. And I tell people in meetings, you're going to mistime yourself to death. You're going to yeah but yourself to death. I was very fortunate that I was willing to become willing. And that's the best advice in triad that I can offer. Become willing to become willing to become willing, because it was my willingness that kept me sober. That got me to 25 years. That got me to 1 year, to 10 years, to whatever years, to 30 days. It was my willingness, and the hell with determination, because the liquor store was just down the street. So it was my willingness not to go to the liquor store. It was my willingness not to drink those 2 beers that I had in the fridge that I knew that I had to get rid of. And I didn't want to get rid of them the normal way. I had to throw them out. I had to become willing to say no to things and yes to myself, because I am the most important person, thing, being in my life, and I can't help you if I can't help me first. I hope.
Right. Thank you, Anthony. All of you have great advice, and I just want to tack on to that a little bit too. Asking for help is the most critical piece. It doesn't have to be AA. We've all gone through the traditional 12-step structure or program to get ourselves sober, but what people do need is that structure. AA, NA, that's sort of the de facto one in our cultures. Like that's where you go. That's where everybody's sort of funneled into. But Deepak Chopra has a recovery program. Local churches have a recovery program. There's lots and lots of different programs and structures in place. All you have to do is find a spiritual structure. And if you are in the throes of your addiction, you ain't got it. And that's why you can't get better on your own, is because you don't have a structure. You don't have to keep that structure, but you need something off of which to build, a foundation off of which to build. And I would add, I love what Steve said earlier. It kind of gave me this, commit to your dream like you committed to your addiction. And I say commit to spirit, commit to your spirituality like you've committed to your addiction. And if you can, that's what I feel like has kept me sober. I can speak for myself as having that spiritual structure. And for me, it started with AA and has grown and morphed and become my own since then. And that commitment to spirituality, commitment to spirit. It's like, I think Tracy said earlier, it's like, why would I pick up a drink and give up everything I've built? I feel exactly the same way.
Yeah.
So Tracy, Steve, Anthony, thank you a million times. Thank you so much for coming on and having this incredible discussion. I feel like I learned a lot. I just feel so great to have you two together, and the energy was just brilliant and perfect. So thank you again and again. And I'm so looking forward to doing something like this again with you. And I like what Steve said. There's a part 2 in there. I think so too. I think we can probably just keep on going with this thing.
Yeah.
So
thank you, Ingrid.
Thank you.
I
want to thank you're welcome. Thank you, everybody who listened in today. You're out there, you're on the airwaves, and thank you for listening. If you're listening to the archive version of this, this advice cannot be outdated, so thank you again. I want to thank my producer, Reverend Tiffany Whitesage Woman of Goldilocks Productions. So without her, this show would not be possible. In case you didn't know, Goldilocks Production hosts a number of spiritual-based shows. In fact, our guest, Anthony Rodriguez, is a host of one of the shows as well. It's Anthony, remind me the name of your show? He's on. Okay,
the Transformational Sacred Drum Medicine Show at 1 p.m. today, this afternoon.
All right, that's 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 4 p.m. Eastern Time, so there's a little plug for you, babe. But anyway, Goldilocks Productions hosts a number of spiritual-based shows, and you can find them all archived on Spreaker.com. So the web URL is Spreaker.com. That's SPREAKER.com/Goldilocks Productions. And Goldilocks is GLDYLOCKS Productions. So give us a follow there and explore all of the fantastic content that Goldilocks Productions produces. And please share what feeds you. Share with your friends. We are looking to get the spiritual word out, all of us. If you want to get in touch with me personally, you can visit my website at www.ingridhturner.com. That's INGRIDHTURNER.com. You can learn more about me on that site. You can explore further spiritual musings from me, and you can book time with me one-on-one. All right, our next Living in Partnership with Spirit show is Tuesday, February 7th, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be learning about the chakras in the body and how we intuitively use those energy centers for information and healing of our physical, emotional, and spiritual bodies. So thank you again for joining us. I'm so looking forward to diving in again next week. Have a wonderful day.
Hi, this is Maury Moreland Morrison, here to tell you Geico has more than just great savings. Much more. Yes, while Geico could help you rack up more moolah faster than you can say metamorphosis, they've also been the fastest growing auto insurer for more than 10 years. That's more like it. Furthermore, Geico has fast and friendly claim service. That might seem like an oxymoron, but it's not. All the more reason to say no other auto insurer has more than Geico. Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.